What are your top tips for anyone trying to create their own games?
Top 3 tips for anyone trying to make their own games. My first tip would be to decide before you work on anything whether the project is going to be for yourself or whether you're making it for other people. Now, I don't actually know of any examples of game creators making a whole game just for themselves and maybe a small group of their inner circle of friends, but it's something to think about because that influences your layout direction, what you need to include in a book or a pamphlet or whatever you're trying to write there, whether you need to pay for art or whether anyone's going to care. Because you can always make your own game for yourself and then decide later that you want to present it to other people and you may need to make some tweaks. So that's probably an easy one to answer. Number 2 would be to ask the hard question before you start working, or even if you have a few initial ideas and you've laid a few things out, maybe you've got an outline, but it would be to ask the question, why would anyone play this? Why would anyone buy this? If someone saw this on the shelf next to a competing larger game, would they be more interested in this than they would in that game? And that's that's a tough question. It's a curveball to answer, but it's one you have to do. For example, I am working on a kaiju versus mecha role-playing game with some wargaming elements to it. It's in post-apocalyptic, inspired by old-school cyberpunk things from the 80s. And I had to ask the question, before I started working on this, why would anyone play this over Mechton Zeta? Why would anyone pick this up if they saw it in a game store instead of just buy a bunch of BattleTech? And if you can come up with a good elevator pitch, which is just a summary of the answer to this question that you can present to other people and get them enticed and excited about the game, and maybe have someone say, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Great, I'm looking forward to it now. If you can answer that question and present that statement, then you'll be in good shape to continue. Number 3, after you've answered that question and you want to really dive into the game, I believe an outline is important. And the way I create my outlines, everyone does it differently. You can just sit down and do stream of consciousness writing and do whatever you want, but I like to at least have like a 1-page notepad outline or some notes of how I'm going to lay out the game, lay out the book, module, whatever I'm working on. And I like to pick up similar things in the genre that I'm working on to compare them to. For example, I picked up the book for Taldore, or whatever the Critical Role setting is, when I started working on Iris, because I needed an example of a popular and successful setting book for D&D and how that's laid out and everything. I didn't use anything from that setting. I hate that setting, but just the technical aspects of the book, how to present the information to other people in ways that make sense, was important for me to kind of pick up on. And that's for anyone, especially if you don't have much experience in book writing, technical writing, or laying out role-playing games, or any game really. So make an outline of what you think you should be including. You can always change, add, and subtract things as you progress, and then try to stick to it as best as you possibly can. Those are my top 3 tips.